Nah, how
Yeah.
most of the countries that's housed by the middle class, and then there is no delineation section. Like people, I'm a paycheck away from being poor.
100%.
So me, let me put it in go Oliver. Like we're not so far apart.
Yeah.
But me, a white boy lives in the level of
Yeah.
I answer different ones like
Yeah.
from resources to access to information.
Yeah.
And then I sit down and think, well, now here I have a son and a family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm looking at my history.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I can only base my history to 3 or 4 generations.
Yeah.
Formation prior to that
Mm.
also clear.
Yeah.
But there must be a line of struggle in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I can't just blame it on Afrikaners and say, no, it's about it. I think, when I sit down and I think the machine is bigger. Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like I struggle to make those linkages because I don't think, like I genuinely don't think Afrikaners were the brainchilds and architects of what we see as a country right now.
Yeah.
Because even in the broader scheme, worldwide, never mind South Africa, the tentacles of Europe and the West and oligarchies and monarchies and what still exist currently. Because how we went to abolish a king. Kings are kings and they've been kings since they were. Government created while kings are there. We still have kings. Who designated a king, we don't know. But this thing is just for me, or when it boils down to like I feel like there's an influence now on the current economic state, and it's really working directly on the middle class. And right, like if I want to venture into business, one time I was telling some lofty idea or no, want to make a data center, but when the capital is locked out for black people. Yeah. Just clean like that. Yeah. I mean, he's saying that black people can't get credit to do business. Yeah. Yeah. That means we are fighting almost like a losing battle. Now, now I'm in the process of starting a business. I'm going to look for funding. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to not necessarily look for funding. I'm going to get credit to do business. And I just feel like the system is just again something went over me. Like I like it, and something's just a bit strange too. Yeah. Yeah, that's just how I feel it. I don't know. And I feel like information is coming in trips and drives on Salama. Yeah. And I hear and I think, my camera, no, man. Like, it's like the countries that are standing still. And I know you speak about like investing in equities and stuff like that. And how securities have survived the times essentially of economic and flow. But even that, isn't that a construct somehow of like delocalization, but at a bigger level? Yeah. Because who really benefits when the market feels like? Yeah. Yeah, but there's just some existential crisis they have been going through. Yeah. Rabbit holes the conspiracy. I just like more yeah. So then I know, like, because I was telling my wife, I'm like, when you watch Shaka Zulu, and I think they make like they make like small references, like, and only recently I just noticed how recent this thing is, like 150 years, 180 years ago. Yeah. That's nothing in hindsight about it. 18 something. Yeah. That's when the British Army was then tightening the screws on Afrikaners, let's say, for example. But like if you go back Because I was telling her, you were mentioning the Dutch East Indian company.
Yeah.
And then I told her the shoe settlers in South Africa or on the coast were Portuguese.
Yeah.
And then I found out that it wasn't just the Dutch East India Company, it was the English. But there were a lot of trading companies. Essentially, there were like some mini conglomerates that are moving from all these countries through India and using the Cape as a base. Okay.
Yeah.
The reality is that the strongest navy won in the end, which was the English Navy that took over that base, the Dutch. Okay. So I'm telling them, like, the answer to the big story is a bit skewed, because they don't tell us who the Elephant River was. Elephant River came as a corporation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't tell us for years before we even mentioned the Elephant River, at least as far as the 1400s.
Yeah.
To what the Elephant River was doing was already there.
Yeah.
So then when you start from there, and then kind of unpack, or when you understand, they didn't just lose the Cape Coast. The Dutch didn't just lose the Cape. They lost other islands to the English, and they had to capitulate essentially some of their rule, which kind of led to the failure of the Dutch East Indian Company or East Indian Company, and then the rise of English power, as we see from a colonial point of view. And that's kind of the base of where the apartheid and African story starts from a South African context. But I don't think what I'm saying, people must know. I think it's common knowledge. But now, the economic levers of what we see as a country right now, understand? And that's why I'm saying, I feel like the European element, the Western element is still very ingrained. It's almost like it's almost like we are still under their thumb, basically. And the Anglo-Boer was not the story of how Afrikaners came back and took over banking. I don't think it's discussed correctly, because they took over banking, but they didn't take over minerals and assets. They took over insurance, but those are all vehicles of protecting the value, the real thing. So Afrikaners are still secondary. I still think Maburu too much in the context of what this country is. But that's how I see it. And I think because this also stems from like watching this Malanga committee and busy throwing around black names, and I'm like, this is simply, guys. Or a big size people tacky. Hey, it's just been things have just been firing off in my head. I'll go for something.
How far back do you wanna take it? Let me start here. I get if we're gonna deal with the Afrikaans element. So let's go backwards. So obviously we are in current times, and current I mean the last 30 years. For me, in historical context, it doesn't exist. When people talk about the messing up of the ANC in the last 30 years and how we've ruined the country, I can see it. And look, it doesn't take an intelligent person to analyze all the English that makes that legitimate, right? Then you take it a step back and you say, I normally say, but what did we expect as a start, right? Because you've got guys that were freedom fighters in the bush, in exile, underground. Sure.
There is no, I think, tangible information around what war they fought. And I don't think.
Yes.
I don't think there's another fallacy that's been thrown around.
Definitely.
And I recently just got some information and I thought it's a bit crazy.
Yeah.
Just to stop Jomo Disa was an African spy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the camps that they set up in Zambia and stuff like that were basically prisons.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think this is like, I've referenced this, I think this is genius for it.
Yeah.
They took out the most virile and the energized black kids outside of South Africa. Yeah. Just going to stabilize their lives and then under the guise of they're going to fight for something which they never fought for. Yeah. Look, can you imagine that being true? Yeah, I can. I've got books that I'm looking at in front of me. Yeah. Like it's evil, but it's genius. You know, if you read the story of the Super Afrikaners, the story of the Broederbond, starting there, you learn, for example, how June 16 happened from an Afrikaner perspective, at least the Broederbond. Let me not say Afrikaner, because it's like today, the BEE elite, not all black people are the BEE elite. So that's the Afrikaner Broederbond, the people that were behind apartheid. When you read the minutes of their meetings and how they analyzed how they lead up to June 16, 1976, you'll remember that obviously my history won't be on point because I'm not giving a history lecture. But it will approximate because if I take out the books and I was preparing for a lecture, I would get the dates right. H.F. Verwoerd becomes president. In 1957, if I'm not wrong. I don't know. Yeah, around that time in the 50s, either early or late 50s. Prior to being president, he would have served for 20 years as the Minister of Native Affairs. 20 years. So that passes the 10 years of apartheid from 1948 to 1958, but also the 10 years preceding that. And he got his PhD in that, where he was an expert in Bantu affairs. H.R. Verwoerd knew our history and our cultures better than we knew them. He lived Komaghaeng. By the time he came in, and that's why he was called the architect of apartheid, he knew exactly what the landscape was and what he needed to do to social engineer. Wabo. He comes in and, I mean, he comes in at the helm of the Broederbond. Broederbond would have been started in 1915 by Four Oaks, J.G. Klopper, Nodier, not Beyers Nodier, Beyers Nodier's father, and then I forget the other two guys. Oh, they're not the Rupert family somewhere. Not the Rupert family, but Four Oaks. And they decide that they're tired of Afrikaners being the scum of South Africa, including what I was saying now. Yes, including against us blacks. Us blacks, what we were doing, would go work in the same mines as they work, we'd earn the same minimal wage as they earned, but we came home and bought cows. As I say, non-notably, I've put in my statuses, 1967, 1968. My great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather each had in excess of 400 cows. You know? I never heard of my great-grandfather had 150. Yeah, that was something easy that they would. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't by them being. I mean, my grandmother, when she speaks of my great-great-grandfather, ati why Kogipeshu? In other words, she likes to emphasize that he was not a learned man. He was not. Don't for a second think I'm talking about your father. No. Your father is very educated. I'm talking about a simple man who practiced his traditionalism. He worked at the sugar mill and he would use his meager paycheck to buy a cow and expand his land and land territory. So much so that now my family actually has claim to the land Yakoshowe, all the way to Empangeni. That is how. Yeah, Hamoko, Richards Bay, and a bit of Palito.
Just that is just me showing you the economic model that was there and how robust it was. In other words, a simple man could look after cows, expand his territory, and make a living for his family. My grandmother will very proudly tell you, never ikirela rice. They grew cedar wood and blue gum wood and all these sorts of wood. Look at the forest, mini forests for fire, for making furniture, for making all sorts of items that you could use around the house, including building the house itself. You know, uh, sugar, they would make sugar themselves. She likes joking that, Mina, for the longest time, I thought sugar was black or brown. White sugar and brown sugar, ibile. I ngaqala ukuyibona when I started working, But when I was growing up on my mother's, on my grandfather, who is my great great grandfather, on his homestead, sugar was black, you know. Rice, we used to pick it from the trees, just like you pick mabele and then washila and then you make pap. That was them ka rice. And then all sorts of veggies, and I mean, you don't even count the number of lambs and whatever. So that raises my first hypothesis that by the time Bantu education is introduced, Bantu education is not introduced to prevent us from studying science and technology. That is what they say, so that we can create an enemy. No, we want to study that thing that you are preventing us from studying. But the genius thing that they were doing, they were taking us away from our indigenous knowledge systems. So instead of attacking the indigenous knowledge systems directly, we rather create a fictitious enemy. Yeah, we are going to teach you, we're going to give you education, but we are not going to give you the education that's going to make you scientists. Because what are you going to use it for? Your job is to be maids. And then now you start this revolutionary war of fighting this enemy that, as you are saying, not one war do we even get to see. It was maybe then a system of just making sure that the loudest and the bravest show themselves, and then we exile them and hold them in prison camps abroad. Again, I don't know if that's true, but it's not far-fetched, because as time keeps moving, they keep on finding ways to deal with resistance, such that in as early as 1963, 64, when they start introducing Boapartheid as an official language and they start forcing teachers to upskill, and they see the resistance of the teachers, and then they start seeing that, okay, all these resistances, let's move our good teachers to the rural areas and our weaker teachers to the townships here in in Gauteng, where as the army and the police,
and I can give you a very practical thing about what you're saying.
Yeah.
In 2013, 12, whatever, around the 2010, 11, when we were in UP.
Yeah.
There's a course in Tanyana, so that was Gohundu.
Yeah.
Constantine was created for distance learning, for teachers to do their honors in education.
Yeah.
And the main focus were on these legacy teachers.
Yeah.
And then the normal students would just apply and do their honors. They were going for those.
Yeah.
I don't know what's in the vista, those interesting colleges and things like that.
Yeah.
And those guys, obviously, they had a band education.
Crew. Yeah.
Yeah. So they are the ones that bore the brand of what the education system was supposed to develop.
Yeah.
When you look at their reports,
these
are people who were then permitted to go learn to be teachers.
Yeah.
Understand? A lot of them failed.
Yeah.
At school.
Yes. Yeah.
They failed. Like the AT.
Yeah.
Like those are the symbols, like not even leading, like similar, like there's more things on the line. Like I was in a tough talk.
Yeah.
All the things you feel it's around the English.
Yeah.
Like not even the same,
Yeah.
Could be age, like the symbols in a common area.
Yeah.
And then those people became teachers.
Yeah.
The teachers then they taught generations up until us, and some of them are still teaching current.
Yeah.
And then what do we expect?
Yeah.
You know, for context that I've seen.
Yeah.
Physically.
Yeah.
Only.
Yeah.
The thing that you're saying was black teachers were flagged into the system.
Yeah.
And this just permeates even through today, because you can just see in the way people are being socialized, even within the school. There's a difference in of thinking.
Yeah. And they're a very sophisticated model of identifying good teachers, bring them to Gauteng, and then the rest ship out, such that they designed that if ever there should be uprisings against Africans, it should happen where we are able to readily deploy the army and the police. It shouldn't happen in some lonely field somewhere where the uprising will gather wind and then sweep over the whole country. Yeah, well, so that's the first point of how you see in meeting minutes, in mini strikes, in mini rebellions, how they basically channeled it to happen in Soweto and nowhere else, because Soweto is where we can crack down fast and then deal with it.
Even the way my different job.
Yeah.
I design like
yes.
No,
it's a concentration camp.
So it is 3 or 4 exit points.
A township is a concentration camp.
Like Karango has one, so one.
Yeah.
Mamelodi basically has 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Depending on what direction you're coming from.
Yeah. And even Tsabubedi, they're only starting now. The third one, they're only starting now.
Yeah. Is a result of expansion.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like Rangu was still today, Rangu and Nale and
100%.
Yeah, Rangu and 4, and this is in
yeah.
Like to put here, those are an example of when the township grew up. But Marifuno were quiet, so it literally closed
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, every night they used to be shut down. They used to be shut down, and then in the morning you go out, you go to work, you come back, shut down. None of this freedom that we see today. Lockdown, as it happened now, COVID-15.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID-19.
19.
It's almost like you could say they were retesting. Are we still able to control movement?
I don't know. It's like
yeah.
You know, in the tail ends, it's a COVID, like early, like late 2020.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm getting to see like he never would never so first time. Maybe I got first
yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm getting yeah. Not a tool.
Yeah.
N1
yeah.
Do you know crazy that is true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like a war zone. You could feel happy. I went to Limpopo, I think, at some point. But I think it was audit related. But I remember Fika toll gate to Gramasole. And then you are driving alone. So do you know how weird it is? You drive alone, then you kopana le masole. Then you drive alone, then you kopana le maphodisa.
True.
Yeah.
No man normally when I'm put negative put some restaurants from half it everything and
yeah.
It for the bail.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just driving around the garage and petrol.
Yeah.
But the garage go is to pass one in
yeah. Yeah.
There's no way I say, like on another movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, COVID.
Yeah.
So remember the we saw on a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And that it's for me that's apartheid. You know, now you speak about you don't think Afrikaners were smart enough. I agree with you, because if you check when apartheid became legal, May 1938.
Yeah.
I think June 1938, the state of Israel was born.
Yeah, Israel is 1942, and then somebody.
Yeah. Point is, I mean, you understand it would be something if you're talking about a 50-year gap.
No, I hear you.
But if we're discussing it 1 month, I say 1 month, you say 3 years, we are talking about a proximity that you can tell that, okay, this is a global system. This is not a individual act by the brilliant Afrikaners in South Africa.
You know, the thing over Israel, and this thing is crazy.
Yeah.
Israel was born from relating to Jewish persecution,
Yeah.
and this was very like propaganda pushed by the English monarch and the Rothschilds, basically, who gave them the land that they had no right. They had no right to Palestine, but we had the people of Palestine as a safe haven for European Jews to go start their life. And then Mama Elia referenced the Rothschilds through cryptology and cryptic messages were being as far because there's earlier versions of computers that were sending code and information between Europe and America and so forth. But they engineered Hitler to be the enemy. I
wouldn't be surprised there.
Yeah, they engineered Hitler to be the enemy of the Jewish idea. Because they needed to, like you're saying, give a direction to, like, this is the person that's making your life like this. But in reality, they're all in cahoots. And there's this thing, like, that I one time was just, and I don't know if it's true, like translation of a speech by Hitler. Where Hitler is speaking to the Nazi Nazis just before the end of World War II, where it seems like Germany is winning. And he said, people speak about me as the enemy. But you don't know the real enemy. They don't know who we're actually fighting. But that's just to reference what Israel was. And then they further say, since what's the narrative now? And then we've wrote the Nazi hate to come nice now. And then, but who's the enemy right now in the world? It's Russia. Always need someone to point at. When the real exit is happening. Like we are looking at Ukraine and Russia and BRICS and whatever, but what's really going on in the world economy situation? But that's what I'm saying, those conspiracy rabbit holes, not really top level.
No, it's exactly that. Hore, first of all, there's real credence to the notion, well, this is a blueprint that was easily implementable in South Africa and immediately elsewhere. I get, including even if you look at what is Jim Crow, the fall of Black Wall Street, laying in this, the King American, not the civil wars, but essentially the segregation era. Laying in. I mean, if you listen to why Obama say that one other were driven by Nelson Mandela and the fight for freedom in apartheid, laying in. Why? It's because they could resonate with it. Why could they resonate with it? Because it wasn't the first time it was being done. I get it. So now it starts to address that global knowledge system that you are then speaking of. That says that, actually, brilliant as Bufervurt were, but they are perfecting a blueprint that already exists. They are adding a South African perspective to a blueprint that already exists. And in a lot of things, South Africa is often last to some of these things. For example, I mean, we got freedom in inverted commas last. So meaning that the version democracy that we implement would have been after the winds of change have swept through Africa. England had gained a lot of years of experience of freeing African nations, such that by the time we get our independence, the package that is set is clean and clear. For example, I mean, today already I was listening to a speech that still emphasizes, or it's not Mbuyiseni, the other one, Floyd, where he's explaining, or the lack of thinking and education in leadership in politics in South Africa are something as simple as the economy. The fact that we have not yet addressed colonial architecture, the fact that all roads lead from the mines to the sea. There is absolutely no infrastructure that is trying to conceptualize the idea that coal should be sold here in Joburg or in Zambia. All of it leads to the sea.
All the national roads lead from a mine to the sea.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
And all the adjacent roads and conjoining roads.
Yeah.
The infrastructure is created for export.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Like, I've never thought about that.
Yeah, well, so that's just to touch on some of those structural elements. It then leads me to then end it.
They're not allowed.
Yeah, spot on. That was gonna be my, what do you call it, crowning argument. For me, I've said now for 2 years, our economy, and this is loosely speaking, obviously you can speak about the other unnamed representatives. Our economy is in the pocket of two families, the Oppenheimer and the Rupert families.
I was listening to something today. I was saying exactly that.
Yeah.
Literally,
yeah.
On my drive back from the gym, that's like 2 hours ago.
Yeah, the Oppenheimers own the mines, and then the Ruperts own industry. Remember, I don't know if you've seen a bankability study or a feasibility study for a mine. A mine, you have to show a 30-year plan, how you are going to develop all the infrastructure to extract the minerals. Then you are going to use the minerals and the first benefits of those minerals to build the town for the employees, for commerce, banks to bank the money that is going to be getting taken out of there, insurance companies and the like, up until the peak of the mine, where life is booming, people are coming from everywhere in the world, and then the decline of the mine, where you start exiting certain sectors as the town starts slowly dying. I get such that if you look anywhere in the developing world, I know because I invest all over the continent, most stock exchanges are dominated by banks and mines on the continent. And that now taps into the next thing that you spoke of when you speak of the fall of the gold standard and the rise of fiat currency. Now we are moving into the era of globalized financial flows and the movement of capital globally. If you've got a reserve bank that has to be privately owned, and the private owners are Germans, which leads right back to the Rothschild, you have a key state institution that has the ability to influence money supply, being privately owned, and no one being able to own more than 10,000 shares, 1% of the reserve bank. There's no secret, there's no conspiracy. It's fact, it's written. Yeah, it's
why.
Yeah.
Why Bitcoin and especially cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being getting. I think initially they introduced them as getting an alternative to creating value, and that's why we're told about how they're being mined and whatever. Which is something you can't. I don't think we understand fully. Yeah. What the idea is. Until they say blockchain is the value. So the more it's difficult to crack. Like on this thing is also like crazy. But now what they're saying is and this is like again conspiracy. Yeah. This thing was always supposed to call it started off as something that you can't have and then they made it something that you can have on Salan. And when more people start acclimating and understanding it, and obviously now starts becoming a base tariff, then it can become programmable.
Yeah.
And it's already programmable. Once you can link a rand to a person, one for one, then you know who has what.
Yeah.
So they can switch off his money right now.
Hey, you are even touching a tough one when you even start talking about switching off his money. I was discussing, where was I? Oh, I was at one of my Afrikaans meetings. I won't sell you guys, gents. Yeah. Hey. And they're discussing Fika, and I get there's an accountant, and they're like, yes, you help us with Fika, man. Well, what's wrong with this thing? And I was like, but guys, you guys brought it in. It's like, how? You guys agree you are lawyers and you are fighting state capture. And then you started passing laws very fast so that everybody that has got money in the bank or a financial institution must start disclosing who they are and the origins of that money, including the beneficial ownership. I get what all of that is trying to do is just trying to mark who owns what, so that we can again continue the financialization of our lives. When we don't like your statements, so if I say bad statements against a certain group of people, as I say, Afrikaners, gays, sometimes even blacks, women, if I say rape or these bad words that somebody has decided that we are not allowed to say, then all I need is 100 petitions on Twitter, and then they block my Twitter account. My Twitter account has been blocked. The bank can block my money and say that no, apparently you are a person of interest, or you are whatever the term is inside the FICA Act. You are someone who is under suspicion of furthering the ends of terrorism or the Terrorism Act. Exactly. Wabo.
Yeah. Even that other one, illicit money flows.
Yes. Wabo. Hey. Wabo.
What is Bitcoin? Because I think like also now.
Yeah.
About Fika and basically Rika.
Yeah. Yeah. Why hope all Rika? It's so cool as a country.
Rika, man.
Hey.
These things like like this thing to like it's like an identity marker.
Yeah.
I don't think because I've listened to like when I started trading Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Then like guys were trading. Some guys were trading forex like as around. There's some initial boom when Bitcoin just soared, man. The value of Bitcoin was like 180 rand.
Yes.
Like 180,000 rand.
Yeah.
This is in 2017.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was like to guys, I'm like this, and now I think my first mention because I used to like going to the EMS building and feeling the free week.
Yeah. Karupola, yeah. Ne ba beela rena bana ba thuthuka.
Oh, ne ke tle ke tabola
yeah. Yeah.
Because then I started reading from the because I come there and I find
yeah. No, that's also the painful and sad thing. And also that's why I'm so confident with what I'm doing. Ne?
Yeah.
I comfortably saw firsthand, and again, I'm not throwing shade to my peers. I'm just narrating what I saw. I think one of the nice things about going to these nice institutions, your tax, your what's this, your UCT, UJ, and then especially I get. Yeah, it's getting to see that how the top student in accounting doesn't know who Warren Buffett is. Okay, interesting. The top student in accounting doesn't understand shares and investing. Hey man. Okay. the top student in accounting doesn't understand the rural economy or the township economy. Hey man, we're along, guys. Yeah, but exactly. And for me, it started showing me as well that okay, if I can engage these guys, because remember, they are smart for a reason, they are top of the class for a reason, they know something that you don't know. I get. But equally so, if you can leverage what your strength is, maybe they don't have an interest in investing and you can't fault them, even though it's inherent to what you are studying. But hey, then you can test your knowledge and your theories against their best knowledge. Then it's some sort of proxy that says, okay, I stress tested this model that I have in mind, and the best brains couldn't poke a hole in it. Therefore, either until someone refutes it of equal education or even more, it then stands to hold that this model works like this, and the problems and solutions that are inherent in it that I've identified are this and this and that. Now that's what I use them for. And I mean, I'm managing 2 million rands now. In my Martin kind of told me. Yeah, you know. And my asset base is growing. And it's growing exponentially. I was on 1 million same time last year. So I've grown. It took me 10 years to get to 1 million. And it took me 1 year to get to 2 million. Yeah, but, hey. I don't necessarily need to work for anyone anymore, especially. Well, I'm still far. But exactly. Yeah, well, in terms of economics 101, I've learned how to pool capital and how to reallocate it in a manner. I mean, I'm 100% up in the US, and in South Africa, I'm 20% up, but it's a much bigger capital pool. And it's growing every day, that 20% up. And how to get it? You look at that, and then now you can start to benchmark what is the best thinking across the country. I mean, for board exams, you sit in class with people from everywhere, from UJ, from UCT. All of you are sitting in class, and you'd like to believe that it's a principle of truth that if someone in that type of environment violates the principles of truth, if I'm sitting with true academics, they can't sit down and just leave it as is. If they do, then they're a special type of academics. Then we're in trouble, because then we've got non-questioning intellectuals that are going to lead us. Hey, Wabo. Hey, so those are some of the things, despite the fact that obviously I've read the books and, you know, you continue to polish the thinking and engagement and what have you. But it basically ends up becoming, then you sit with a model that says, okay, I mean, the latest argument I heard about Bitcoin was that, I mean, there was one of the billionaires that was saying, do you honestly think as a poor person that you've outsmarted us, the rich? Don't you think as early as Bitcoin was starting out, I already had hired people that would figure it out, and I put in millions and millions, and now it's billions in it. I mean, if you remember Elon Musk, there was a point where Tesla was buying Bitcoin like crazy. I think they owned like 23,000 units of Bitcoin or something to that effect, you know. And come on, this thing is finite. That's another reason why I can. Exactly. Well, yeah. How long will it be finite? Because obviously now H3 and if I'm gonna know once you have the base currency in hold, then and it's in your ownership as an asset, then essentially you like multiply. Yeah. You can make smaller Bitcoins. Yeah. First time exactly a bank. Now you know where I left Bitcoin. I attended this Leader X thing in Sandton every year, finance what. I asked 2 questions, first of all. I asked, there was a guy there, he was a VC from Silicon Valley, and obviously they come to Sandton and do these workshops to have a conversation about which direction we are moving, what. I asked him one question: what do we need to do as South Africa, especially the tech startup or the startup environment, to catch up to Silicon Valley or do what they're doing? The guy thought about it, and then he said nothing. Like he said, there's nothing that you can do. I said, what do you mean? He said, they are so far ahead. I can't even begin to imagine how I would advise you without giving you false hope that you're ever going to get anywhere close. Okay. I wanted to follow up with, then what are we doing here? But I realized that, you know what? You didn't come here to antagonize. You came here to actually learn. And already the first question gave you an answer you are not expecting. Therefore, maybe don't fight. Take it as an answer. You'll come back. Yabo? And he explained, or it's a culture there now. It's not tools that they insert, add the government support, add BE, add this, add an incubation hub. It's a culture. And I'll give you an example. In South Africa, you guys complain about the lack of access to funding, right? In the US, someone comes from Kazakhstan, Israel, Egypt, Kenya, you name it, and they live off whatever, toast, and the back of a dumpster for 4 years, developing something that gets them 100,000 customers. And when they're in that position, only then do they start thinking about fundraising. While they're making about $1 million, $2 million, $3 million US dollars, that's 75 million rands at the time. Only then do they think about fundraising, because now they have a track record and they've got something tangible that they can come to you with. And when you have a conversation as a VC with them, everything that you try and poke holes about, they've got experience doing it. Then in South Africa, you've got someone that's got an idea, living at home, didn't go to school, and he says he's got lack of access to funding. That's why his $1 million global idea can't take off. The second place where I got a rude awakening, this is now not Leader X. I'm still going to come to Leader X's second one. I was at a mining workshop, mining in Daba in Western Cape, Northwest. And I remember it was by invitation only. There was a strike outside, Kadi Hippo. We were warned to turn away. Then they got private security to come. Once we made it through the crowds, the Mpagati, almost like Bumarikana style.
Yeah.
It was marquee tents. It was your Giorgio Armani suits, air-conditioned marquee tents, 5-star meals, dessert, flirtatious 40-year-olds, you name it. Nebaleta. And I remember speaking to one of the executives at Investec who listen, we are trying to launch a township VC. This is the traction that we had. So I already learned that it's easier to ask for money when you have traction, what. And then he asked me a few questions and he said, listen, I've worked in the presidency for the last 20 years or so. Wabo. I can tell you, and because I was trying to jump on the bandwagon that the president is someone who's business savvy and is friendly towards business.
Yeah.
And he said, let me just tell you what I see wrong with your product and why it's not going to see the time of day. It's like, yeah, let me sit down and take notes. He said to me that, I mean, how much are you looking for example, if I were to say in funding, And I puffed my chest and I said about 20 million. And he said, to give you context, 20 million won't even move the needle in the country.
Yeah.
If I ask the president for money to fund your initiative, he immediately expects it to be rolled out in all provinces, all townships of the country in the next month.
Which also was such a lofty statement because
what
have they ever rolled out?
Exactly.
Most of all.
Exactly.
What has ever been rolled out? Nothing.
Nothing. So it's a barrier to entry, but they're also not doing anything.
They don't want to.
They don't want to. I took it positively and I started elevating my thinking to always say that, listen, if I'm not doing anything at a national scale, then I won't even make noise. I'll behave and I'll just do it in my quiet little corner. There was one. Let me come back to Leader X, Bitcoin. I asked a few questions about Bitcoin. So, what does it do? It democratizes finance. Okay, financial inclusion. The poorest of the poor will be able to participate. In fact, they will be the most protected because fiat currency is subject to all the weaknesses that we know it's subject to. Yeah, inflation. The banks can track. They can block your movements. And also, it's not through democracy because if you want to buy, for example, illicit goods, remember when Bitcoin was launching, it launched in the black market first. Yeah, sharp. Yeah, exactly.
That was a test. Apparently, that was a litmus test.
Yes, yes.
They can.
And mind you, South Africa, I had read the Project Cork, I think. South Africa is one of the first countries to innovate being able to track cryptocurrency. There was an initiative by the Reserve Bank and all the banks. And they were doing it because if the world is going to move towards digitization of currency, it was a dual project. It was digitizing of the rand and being able to monitor the flows so that the Reserve Bank can retain its relevance. That was when I realized, most that defeats the very purpose of cryptocurrency to begin with.
No, I knew that thing. As soon as one are having trading.
Yes.
Once you see it in the open market, or you're not necessarily buying
Bitcoin. Yes.
You're not buying a Bitcoin when you buy it more these forex platforms.
Yes. Wabo.
You're not buying the actual Bitcoin.
Yes.
You're buying a company that owns the Bitcoin.
Wabo. 100%. Now, the question I then asked after I had built up all of this knowledge, all of this good feel good, all of this anybody can do it. All you need is a smartphone. You don't even need to be tech savvy. What? I get. The next question I asked was, why are we rolling it out at the Sandton Convention Center where my grandmother is not here? Let's get on a phone call right now. I'll give you the phone. Speak to my grandmother in Masheshane. Tell her to go to the App Store, download do what. And the moment I leave this place, she must be democratized and participating in this global financial currency that is supposed to protect her from inflation. Otherwise, all that's going to happen is that it's going to be monopolized by us in this room, the rich, and the people in whose name we are doing this are never going to see the time of day. Yeah, bo.
This thing, Bitcoin, like,
yeah,
maybe just for us to close it on.
Yeah.
In 2015.
Yeah.
This must be more than further back, man.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
Maybe we're talking about
2013, 2011. Darlington owned 3 Bitcoin. Mpo's wife, she was studying tech, I think financial science or something like that. For one of the assignments, they had to buy Bitcoin. I think she bought 12 or something. Yeah.
There was a guy, man. There was a white guy in Finland.
Yeah.
It's easy to buy it, but he has a rig.
Yeah.
And he mines it.
Yeah.
He mines a Bitcoin a day.
Yeah.
Because it's how much computing time.
Yeah.
This is in 2011.
Yeah.
And then he said if he had a bigger computer, because at the time he was using a small rig, but he was building a server in his house.
Yeah.
So that we could mine a mask.
Yeah.
This was 2011.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2017, my friends were trading forex and buying currency.
Yeah.
And then somehow out of the blue, you can buy Bitcoin on kind of like the thing, MetaTrader.
Yeah.
You can buy Bitcoin on MetaTrader.
Yes. I had Bitcoin in my Luno account, but I'm sure that was late because I think Luno was 2018.
Yeah, it was late.
Yeah.
I think. And now there's a Bitcoin boom.
Yeah.
And now, like, everyone is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'm buying Bitcoin. No, man, how are you buying Bitcoin?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, because from my understanding,
Yeah.
this thing is very difficult to get. One, it's finite.
Yeah.
Two, you have to mine it.
Yeah.
No, man, when I sit down and think, what are you mining, sis?
Yeah.
What
you are creating value, if I remember correctly, because I've been in this finance.
Translate to a currency.
I've been in this finance field for so long. You're taking me way back. So how it essentially used to work, ne? To give it value, they used to issue mathematical problems that once you solve them, you then would have reached a certain level of mastery that can only be attained if you have a certain level of value or knowledge, or monetary value worth of expertise. And therefore, that is how you would have qualified to have mined Bitcoin. So either you'd have solved the problem or you'd have facilitated transactions. So for example, let's say I want to share a meme with Njime, but I can't directly go to Njime. I have to go through someone close to Njime. So you, by proxy of being close to Njime, you have a certain value to me. And so when I send you the money and then you send it to Njime, for solving that problem, you then get a piece of Bitcoin. And the more of us that do that to get access to Njime, eventually you've helped enough of us that it accrues to the same value as a Bitcoin.
It's I hear you and I understand fully what's happening.
Yeah.
But now it's speculating or values perception again.
100%. But they were starting to quantify perception based on what, Lenging. And as I say, for me, I mean, now it's 8 years ago. I'm going off not even my crib notes. I'm going off very rusty knowledge. But
no, what I knew.
Yeah.
What the real value in currencies and like we're saying, technology and basically this is quants and what the real value was in the blockchain. Because Bitcoin is basically a storage instrument. It stores the things that you're trying to move, like you think if you facilitate a transaction or and the code was so strong that it couldn't be broken. Until it was designed to withstand situations where if someone wanted to decipher what you were sending, a message, seeking information, that they would struggle. And that's how. But moving from blockchain, you're saying that one Bitcoin is
worth
$1,000.
That
was created by the banking system, not necessarily by the code.
Yes. And not for me, even when people said it's going to be a currency of the future, this is why, if I can segue into shares, that's when I then decided that, okay, if this thing is going to be a currency, then all the current rich are just going to end up holding it anyway. And either they're holding it by buying it, or they're going to holding it by the same way it is value driven. When you have accumulated Bitcoin and you need to buy a t-shirt, and I make t-shirts for a living, I'm going to sell you my t-shirt for a fraction of a Bitcoin. So the same way that salaries are paid in rands and cents, salaries will get paid in cryptocurrency. Dividends will get paid in cryptocurrency. And besides devaluing it, it will then just continue the same economic model that has been in existence for time immemorial, which is that the people who are going to be rich are people that own assets that bring them income.
Except there's one thing that you're not discussing. Paper money.
Yes.
Gold, a house, land. Those are real assets.
Yes. Yes.
It means rights and ownership are tangible, something that you can see. understand?
Yeah.
And even paper money in itself is still very, it's still
Paper money is paper, it's not an asset.
Yeah, but it's still and it's still under the influence of economic levers. That's why Zimbabwe will print $1 million. So.
Yeah.
It's not a real asset like saying.
I mean, America now owes 30 trillion USD. Number one,
impossible.
Number one to who? Number two, when are they ever gonna pay it back? The only way that they can,
only to China.
Not all of it. Yeah, but the only way they can pay it back is just to erase it. Or
they owe it to, like you're saying, they owe it to the owners of the Reserve Bank.
Yeah.
And there's another bank I heard of the other day, but it's in Switzerland.
Yeah.
But it's the International Bank of what, like it houses all the international debt or something. I get it for it. And
I'll check it up, yeah.
The bank almost has like it's a law unto itself and was created during World War II.
Yeah.
I just forgot the reason. But there's a bank, and that's why even at the peak of the European War, nothing happened in Switzerland.
Yeah.
They allude to a point already now. Switzerland is almost like neutral ground.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the bank. There's a name for the bank. And if someone is being owed money, internationally, let's say you're speaking about America or something, then somehow the bank is linked because I just forgot the name. So there is someone who's owed money, but like you're saying, these things show let's just analyze the conversation. Like now this thing, making this is my first 300,000. This is 300,000 net profit. From a bar. 700,000 worth of expenses. So repaying some credit, paying some salaries, making my first 300,000 will lead me to making my first million. So my first million, then I'm in my mind now thinking, if I pay my card right, then I can cut too. And I have this idea of 50 million is a base. It's like it's something that's sitting there. I want to 50 million. Then you can come over there. And what I mean in come over there, I feel like me and you speaking right now, but we don't necessarily understand the full picture. Like, guys like Evan Kozolowski, for example. That guy has been rumored for years to be a criminal. And somehow, sometimes the thing it breaks into the lexicon. I'm gonna lead the AK-47. Or this guy is actually very nefarious. But he's still, and he doesn't even circumvent the law. He still lives like a legitimate character for years. That's what I mean. He knows something. And I feel like you get to a certain echelon economically. The spaces that you are in, the positions that you go into. And then it's like almost like the curtain is moved from your eyes now. Here's a new story now. Never mind apartheid, never mind the NC, never mind the Bango FNB or AFSA. Economic eyes like this. Because there is no coincidence that Imperial sold to DP World. Or should be sold to Ibn Bev. Like the flow, like this. And right now, when you're sitting in the office and I'm opening my laptop and I'm busy on some Excel spreadsheet, I can feel this is almost nothing. This is almost like keeping me busy. Like writing an essay, go
allow me to answer, even though you've said we know nothing. I don't know how you are put together, but I'll accept. I'll accept because I'm not where I want to be, right? And I'll also accept because the minute you assume you might close off what more you don't know. I'll speak to you about 0 to 2 million because at least I can quantify my knowledge or limit it. You spoke about something very interesting when you compared yourself to a white boy in Rosebank, a white boy anywhere laying. You spoke about this concept of no fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah. And again, I asked, how far do you want to go with this conversation? Because right now, for me, we've just touched at West, the Rothschild, the invention of money, and we haven't even gotten far with the invention of money. We just hear more gold, fiat currency, crypto, but the principle is the same across the ages. I get there's gonna be a scarcity created, the rich are gonna hoard it, they're gonna own assets that allow them to accumulate it faster than you. And then the scarcity. In fact, that is the first law of economics. Economics is about the distribution or the management of scarce resources. When you come to Africa where there's abundance, where your grandfather and my grandfather were living, you cannot apply economics because the first rule of economics is the requirement of scarcity. I get it. That's now what I want to tap into. If you remove that scarcity principle, and that's why I don't wanna go woo woo, because I can go all the way back to the ancient Egyptians. I can even go to spiritually. I'm reading the Bible now. If you look at my Bible, it looks like a text legislation. It's got flags, it's got underlining, highlights, it's got cross-referencing, you name it. I'm sitting with Sangomas, I'm arguing with them, they are enlightening me, they are teaching me about ascension to Christhood. I've got all sense of conversation regarding this concept of trying to make a living on earth. I mean, Matthew 6, verse 21, I think 231. E bolela ka how do not be anxious about anything. Do not be anxious about what you're gonna eat, what you're gonna wear. Then what's the other one? Where you will live, all those sorts of things. And it says those are things that the Gentiles worry about. Your Father in heaven, who feeds the birds, who clothes the grass, knows that you have these needs, and He will see to it that they are met in your life. Are you not more important than the birds? Are you not more important to Him than the grass, such that He would neglect you while feeding them? And then He says, what you need to do is seek ye first the kingdom of God and all His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. In other words, stop worrying about what you're going to eat. Focus on bringing the kingdom of God to earth. And that is how you will be catered for. Engaging on that no fear element. How to get it? I can take it as far back as that and as deep as that. Or I can bring it again now to 2025. I'm telling you now, the road to from 1 million to 2 million had absolutely nothing to do with me trying to grow my company, me trying to invoice anyone, me trying to feed my young wife. It had everything to do with just me expressing myself about the JSE. The last year, I've even said on numerous accounts on my status, I don't want new clients. Please don't send me clients. I am telling you what I'm telling you because I am analyzing the markets, I'm analyzing SARS, and I am seeing that this is the direction that we are moving as a country. That is just first to warn and assist my fellow brothers and sisters. Obviously, somewhere you can always find that there's a motive that I was gonna make money. I might say that I was doing it altruistically, but maybe level 13 of my heart knows very well that I'm playing the long game. Whatever it is, the reality is I did not have an invoice in mind today, tomorrow, and at least the next month. Yeah, and without even doing anything, jiki clients above what I had previously been working on start giving me phone calls. Hey, Chief, can you manage my 200K, 300K? Hey, man. Ne ke sokodisa hodisa 5,000 le bonjime. No, motho o tlisa ka 300,000. 99. And even then, I realized, Tori, don't worry. The financials will money is what keeps score. And I've heard this before, and I used to think to myself, oh, hey, you know, money happens to be the scorecard that we measure these things with. But you need to find what's the game underneath. So Evan Khoza, for example, he probably is in the business of filling up stadiums and making sure that fathers go home safe after the game. The money takes care of itself. Maybe he's an arms trader. He's in the business of, I receive arms, I take them to Venezuela, whatever. The money will take care of itself. And
yeah,
and that's where now you need to start tapping into, where you realize that, okay, here I'm just moving spreadsheets. Nah, as you said, it's like homework at grade 5. And then I feel like that a lot, come my work, you know. Then there are times when I would sit and ask myself, if my employer wasn't my client for my work, what would that look like? And then you start asking yourself, who's interested in the output of my work, the practice of my work, or some section of my work that I maybe have been thinking about in this narrow scope of employment? And then you start seeing that, oh, there are people that are running companies that have revenue of 200, 300, 400 million rands that need an audit review, not an audit itself, that need a review of financial statements. They'll happily pay you 200,000 rands to do a review of financial statements instead of paying 5 million rands for a full-on audit. There are people that need accountants' letters. There are people that need financial models. And I'm talking now, someone who tomorrow wants to go to the bank and buy a TLB, tomorrow wants to go and get his financing approved because he's just gotten married and he needs to put his wife in a house. Useful, yeah, useful finance, not finance, exactly, not finance, yeah, employer, yeah, 9 to 5. Ke bolela finance or Joe. Either ke nyaka go system. Exactly. Exactly. Those sort of things.
Then go finance it.
Yeah.
So I know as elementary, it must be brought to the company. So
Yeah,
is a requirement. Like I've been actually thinking, I'm gonna ask you.
Yeah. Yeah.
About financials, and obviously I need them stand to validate or
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but obviously now my business has never functioned. Essentially, has no money besides the money I would be putting in.
Can it please function?
If I have 80,000,
can it please?
That's the money.
Can it please function? Something, Jeezy. Ho tsentsha 80,000 udla. Ne? Ho tsentsha 80,000 eo. Ne? O e tsentshetsa business tla be e rileng.
So 80,000 eo ke hore khona patala I don't know.
Jeezy.
I don't have said something.
Jeezy.
First time.
I understand you. Yeah.
Something.
Sure.
First time.
Sure.
I gotta do one of the requirements of financial commercial vehicle, let's say.
Yeah.
First time.
Yeah.
Is that there must be a contractual agreement.
Yeah.
Written and signed that when you'll be working with companies as a subcontractor or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's say before this thing, the vehicle asset or the vehicle is in your property.
Yeah.
So that thing is an ongoing conversation that I'm having external besides working on the financing. If I can secure that later or no, this guy as soon as he gets a truck, he's going to work this many hours at this rate.
Yeah.
Delivering these sorts of commodities.
Yeah. Yeah.
As things stand, I can't fabricate business. That must be the basis of the business so that it can substantiate the request or the application for the truck.
Yeah.
The 80,000 is, let's say, 2 months worth of running expenses before my first invoice.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first invoice comes in 51 days.
Yeah.
The first payment will come in 51 days. So I should have at least that much to cover running expenses. So this is paying for insurance, paying the driver, paying diesel.
Yeah.
And any toll fees, let's say we are using toll roads.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's going on.
Yeah.
So in this 80,000 is something I'm getting next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in between now and March,
yeah,
I don't have the 80,000 and I have no reserve company in a bank account.
Jeez. Get the 6th October. Nah. We have 24 days left in October. Nah.
Yeah.
25 days. Nah.
Yeah.
Then we have 30 days in November. Calendar speaking, we've got 31 days in December. We've got 31 in Jan. We've got 28 in Feb. And then we've got 31 in March. 176 days. That's half a year. Ne?
Yeah.
That's half a year. Ne? Sharp. Motho a tloa dimang traka hao. I get la bolela. I get. Sharp. Start talking.
Yeah, no. You know, it's ongoing.
Yeah. Why is it lang?
Yeah.
Ne? No. On the face of, we spoke about the middle class being left behind. Ne? We spoke about no fear. I get.
Yeah.
On the face of it, it looks like Renata the financials. In reality, you are keeping track of all the activities that it takes to bring your business to what it's supposed to be. And you are linking to that a finance system. Let's say invoice. Remember, we use an accrual basis of accounting. Invoice, that's an expense. Why record? Kikolota say 5,000. I get. Next week we have another conversation again. Keo charge. Why record? Wangolota. You go, you have a conversation with Martin. Martin, I have a business opportunity for you. Arkopaneko kai. Mara hore present le ona, ke tlo charge. It's a consultation fee. Ona le zaka witsuruire. You are building incomes and expenses for your business, especially the consulting and advisory side. By the time we track, we are going to understand where that track comes from. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do we get it? You are not, it somewhat even interests me, or I mean, this will be on YouTube, that's fine. But on the face of it, I wish we were dealing with that level of financial engagement. Yeah, or let's put a value to our transactions. Let's put a value to our conversations. Let's put a value to our journey towards having a company linking. Because that's all that a company is. It's a track of your activities and transactions. Wabo. And then at the end of the day, we then see how much of it materializes. Next year, what's the reason I'm giving you that clipper? Oh, but if we can track, but say, exchange of value, I'll recommend it's diamond wa Botswana, and that's what you use to buy your farm and then to own consulting. I get, yeah.
Interesting, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I want to stay away from like, people, we have a tendency of not speaking in real finite things or current,
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I think people sometimes
Yeah.
we are just talking about trends.
And speak for yourself again. What do I get the distance? Continuous.
I think people
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah. No, you know, Rafael. Yeah.
Yeah. And then normal men say, yeah. Mara daring hai bulela.
Yeah.
Like Ashira. I know we hear Mara.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's to my uncle Nara to the Kori. Nara to banal the wheel, Nara to banal the wheel.
Yeah.
A wheel. Yeah. I will understand.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
currently in my position,
Yeah.
I speak more in Excel on talent.
Yeah.
I've been to the truck depot.
Yeah.
I've delivered
Yeah.
a load.
Yeah.
I've seen how the warehouse looks.
Yeah.
I've seen what the truck drivers do. I've unloaded the pack on talent.
Yeah.
I've experienced it for a day, but I've seen
Yeah. Yeah.
what I'm speaking about, essentially where the truck will go.
Yeah.
As you speak, no processing your car license, code 14.
Yeah.
Everything is time specific. Like I paid for Lena Sale like 2 weeks ago.
Expense.
Waiting for
Yeah.
a date.
Yeah.
Can you see that thing? Why did you look around?
Yeah.
Understand? So today, for example, I was speaking to a tax salesman.
Yeah.
Today I'm gradually working up to a point where now the next year starts, and now I'm going to the second phase where now I must make a bigger moves. So I must save some money. Installment
yeah.
I cancel, I move some money, my wife buys a smaller car and I pay her, let's say, for the car.
Yeah.
On first time. So that in my bank account I can easily show let's say I have 16 yearly on first time.
Yeah.
In game is already now
Yeah.
Can it still flat? You know, immediate transfer, so many things going on, selling my property, doing dreams. But I'm working up to a point on salary stage.
Yeah.
And March, that's why March for a bonus.
Yeah.
Again, I want let's say this much, let's say around like that market telling you about or more.
Yeah.
Give or take. Or less. Man, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All these things, plus speaking to the depot owner, let's say, and securing a spot. Because I know a lady now who's going to finance 5 trucks.
Yeah.
And she's never had a truck. She's never been in the truck business.
Yeah.
But from the basis of having the conversation and getting that, but again, but again, it's like some forward, like a payment, this thing will happen.
Yeah.
But that's what she takes to the bank for the financing.
Yeah.
The finance, the financials and the F basics that thing, I think, is a financial requirement thing, and it would have been easier if I had a business like you're saying.
Yeah. Phone.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure, Giz. Now, thanks for the call.
Yeah.
Sharp.